Welcome back to another episode of the Cap Table, episode 11. My name is Aaron Ross. I'm joined by Aaron Dillon, Managing Director of AG Dillon & Co. And Aaron, I have a few topics that I want to talk to you about today. There's an AI price war going on right now. We're seeing that OpenAI is focusing on maximizing token spend, and there seems to be this new layer for this software optimization, this hardware optimization, this market that's creating. I want to talk to you about that. Jeff Bezos is working with Project Prometheus. They just raised $12 billion at a $41 billion valuation to build artificial general engineers. Um,
Yeah.
this has been like one that sounds kind of like there's like this cabal of like Goldman Sachs and BlackRock and all these like big institutional companies getting behind them, and they don't even have a product yet. So that's interesting. I want to talk to you about that. Descartes released their new world model. Their API is open to the public, and they can simulate hours of photorealistic driving, different maps, different areas. It's really incredible software. I want to talk to you about all of that, but I'll start with this. Congratulations on the SpaceX IPO. Everyone in the secondary market, in the private market, was celebrating, seeing it skyrocket. So big congratulations to you there, to myself there,
Thank
I
you, man.
guess, too. And yeah, I mean, what an exciting time to like kick off like everything. I feel like we're just getting started. IPO season is finally here. And what I'm noticing right now, Aaron, is with these companies that we have coming up for their IPOs, OpenAI, Anthropic, super highly anticipated, there seems to be an AI price war that's going on right now. And I saw a report that basically said that Anthropic, they launched a new model, the Fable 5, one of the most powerful models in history in the world, okay?
hmm
But customers are now going to Chinese rivals just for that might offer similar, maybe a little bit worse performance, but it's so much cheaper that they're pivoting to these other models. And is
Right.
this something that like, what do you think of this story, and what do you think it means for the greater token spending landscape right now?
Yeah. So I think this is like we've talked about forward deployed engineers, right? And open architecture on the model front. That's this, right? So this like theme, or I'm not surprised that OpenAI and Anthropic are starting to like tweak their models a little bit, pricing models to address this because you're gonna lose market share. I think people are starting to get more thoughtful and sophisticated, which is like the natural order of things. Like how do I maximize ROI? So we've automated this work stream. Maybe I've used Anthropic or OpenAI. Man, this is expensive. Can we use a Kimi K2.5? Can we use a Quinn model from Alibaba? Like can we use one of these open source models? Whether it's China, I don't know if it matters if it's from China. It's just that it's open source, and the Chinese open source
Yeah.
models are the best right now, right? So people are using those, and can we use those and then lower our cost? So I mean, I've had a couple CEOs that I've talked to that work at these AI application companies, and they're saying in about a year or 2 years time, they think they're going to only use open source,
Really?
right? Yeah,
Whoa.
AMD just came out with a new CPU effectively. It's a new GPU, kind of a GPU type model. It's local. It runs local, and you can run open source models local. So that's no cost. So you buy the computer, the model is free. You train the model. You have to train the model, right? And it's free, but it's free, and then it runs for free, right? So you don't even have to pay a cloud provider. So like I think this is where we're going. It's the natural way of things. It's like, in a normal capital market, function, things will optimize and
Mhm.
money will flow to the most optimal solution. And that's what's happening here. So, the market's very good at getting things dialed in, and I think that's what's going to happen. So there'll be a place for OpenAI and Anthropic and other kind of like cutting edge leading models. But I think it's intuitive that open source models are going to play like a very, very big role, right? In how AI is going to get automated with companies. This is less expensive, right? It's
Yeah.
just less expensive. So it's going to
Yeah, that
happen that way.
makes a lot of sense to me. I'm thinking of Mistral right now, or like this really goes back to what you were explaining before, is that like companies are integrating multiple chatbots into their business, and then figuring out a way to use software to go to the model that will answer the query for the least amount of tokens. So they get the most ROI. And then if they need to use a more complex model like Fable 5, let's say that's 50 times more expensive than DeepSeek, then they'll go to it for the very complex tasks. Are there any, what's going to be built on top of this? Like, are these like open source models that are going to be getting all the love soon? And like, could they reach OpenAI and Anthropic level valuations? Or is it going to be more software companies that you think will just pair each query to the right spender?
Yeah, so I do think the open source businesses will be interesting businesses. I don't think they'll have the same kind of valuations as like the cutting edge, model providers, right? But I think they'll be solid businesses. I do think we're going to see more open source solutions. Like right now, there's really no great US based open source models. We're going to see those, I think, in time. Those will start to present themselves. But I do think it kind of like begs the question is like where will value accrue to, in like the next like several years. I do think it's going to be in the application layer. Because if anything's happening, people are starting to realize like it's you it's hard to automate things. Okay. There's like a level of expertise. And now what we're talking about here is a return on investment. There's a cost associated with it. And if the more sophisticated you get in implementation, like using different models for different tasks within a workflow to optimize for ROI and optimize for quality, that's not like we're just going to rip down OpenAI off the shelf and just use it to automate everything. That's a level of sophistication, right? That just isn't, I don't think, obvious to most people. And then, of course, like depending on the industry, you're going to have different models that will work better in different instances or different use cases for different industries, right? So there's like this level of specialization and customization and nuance, right, in this that I think is in and of itself a level of expertise. And I think that value is going to accrue to the application layer,
Hmm.
right? So you'll still have compute and you'll still need AI compute and chips and everything else, right? You're still going to have open source and closed source model providers. Okay. And I do think that that's going to be kind of like an oligopoly type thing. Like you'll have whatever, 6, 8 type in there, a couple open source, couple closed source. That will be like the group, right? And then you're going to have all these applications that will sit on top and they'll kind of pipe down and use whatever needs to get used to run that. And there's even companies that are starting where like software developers can code into one firm and then it's called model routers. And they actually pick the best model. So kind of like how
Wow.
base 10 will go out and say, where's the cheapest token? There's now people coming in and say, for this particular task, which model is best to execute that particular task? So there's like optimization that's happening and companies that are specializing and optimizing on every layer through so that it's kind of like the easy button for developers to be able to, I code to one API and I get the optimization effort and they'll just take a little, this company will take a little toll on the way through, right? But now
Yeah.
I don't have to geek out on this. They'll just do it for me, right? So like these things are all very important, right? And I think that's where, that's kind of where we're trending towards. But open architecture on the model front is very important. I
I
think
don't
it's
understand
very
how the
important.
US doesn't have like a household name open sourced model that's available to the public right now. Like
Yeah.
is there
Reflection
any
AI is
explanation as to
the,
why? Like,
well, like Meta was dealing with their Llama models. OpenAI and Anthropic have open source models. XAI have open source models. They're usually just the older versions of the models. Um, Reflection AI is the one that's trying to be like kind of the Kimi K 2.5, DeepSeek, you know what I mean, type solution here in the US, right? Reflection AI. So we'll see. They have like a $25 billion valuation right now. So we'll see
well,
if those guys kind of play out and if that continues to play out and they're able to hit the mark there. But I think we're going to have, I do think we'll have some open source models in the US, right? That will be, kind of more, cutting edge and people will be able to use those. But just to be clear, like when we say Chinese closed source, like open source models, that doesn't mean that you're like sending your data to China,
I
right?
think that's what most
It's,
people think. When they're using
you,
DeepSeek for their workflows, you don't think any of that data is going to any Chinese intelligence or being
No,
held in
you can
any.
literally like copy the code. That's open source, right? You can copy the code and like paste it in. It's kind of like WordPress. I don't know if you ever like started a WordPress website. You like download WordPress and then upload it into your site, and you have like a WordPress website, with
Mm,
like a content management system, and it's all like there, but it's like local. The code is like local on your machine, right? Or in your cloud provider or whatever, right? You know what I'm saying? So like you're like it's not at WordPress. Now WordPress has a hosted solution. DeepSeek has a hosted solution that you can use, but you don't have to do that. You can just download the model and upload it into your servers and computers, right? And run the model like local or at your cloud
yeah.
provider, right? So, and that's your version of the model. And like Together AI and Grok and a lot of these other places, like they would go through the model to make sure that there's no like backdoors and where like data is getting sent out, right?
Mhm.
That's kind of
Well,
the some of the value of those platforms.
I'm wondering right now though, like if these open source models are going to be able to deliver, like, if they could put hardware on site, all right, and run
Yeah.
these models on site, I think that they can capture a huge amount of market share, especially like
Hmm.
for some of these companies that do want to have all of their data, all of their hardware on site. Like, Lambda, that was obviously a big part of their pitch, and it was a very successful part of their pitch. It's very attractive, keeping their hardware and their data on site. If these open source models can execute well, it makes sense that they would take a reasonable share of the market away from Anthropic, OpenAI, Gemini. Um, do you do you? It seems like it's inevitable that this optimization wave hits Anthropic and OpenAI right now. Like they need to actually bring down the cost of their tokens. I know that Anthropic's a bit ahead of OpenAI right now, but do you think that that's going to be the next super cycle right now? Is the optimization wave? Is that what we're in right now, Aaron? Because I see
Yeah.
everyone just trying to take the price down.
No, I definitely think there's a function of optimization, but there's also like they're running businesses, and I think they're fighting for market share as well. So like I think it's probably important not to get those two things confused, right? I think every so just to maybe break this down into like another kind of mental model, I suppose, right? Like everyone's realized that AI is super important, and especially in the software developer side, like using these AI coding tools is a must, right? So now, okay, I got to use these. I have to. So now we're using, OpenAI, we're using Anthropic, we're using Cursor, right? Whatever, Codex, Claude Code or Cursor, right? So like, you know, if I use Codex or I use Claude Code, have to use OpenAI or I have to use Anthropic, right? If I use Cursor, I could use any model I want, right? So like like you can pick which model you're using to execute on certain things. So like now you could start to decide, and there's a lot of guys in Silicon Valley talking about like, well, do certain teams get allocated the Claude Code tokens and other people have to use Cursor and the open source models, or you know what I mean? So like there's kind of different philosophies on how this is going to play itself out. But I do think that's kind of where we're going, is people realize they have to do it. Now they're trying to figure out, well, who do we give our budget to, right? And are there other solutions for people who aren't going to get like kind of the top tier budget that we can still make them as productive as possible? So that's all going to work itself out. And then meanwhile, Codex, OpenAI, and Anthropic are like fighting for market share. So they're trying to do everything they can to like, no, 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 don't leave, stay here. Like, implement us into all your workflows where it's like nearly impossible for it to get ripped out. You know what I mean? It's okay. Like just do that work with us. So, I think that's where I think that's also some of what's going on with these pricing things, right? Is people are trying to say like, you're like Uber blew through their budget in the first quarter for the year, blew through the
Yeah.
whole budget for tokens in the first quarter. So like now what do? Like obviously you can't let that continue to happen, right? So you got to do something. So it's like, all right, you don't think they're talking about open source solutions? Of course. Which teams are going to get it versus which teams are not going to get it? Like, of course, of course. You know what I mean?
It
So
makes
yeah,
sense. I just think that like the open source models are such a real threat and can really disrupt market share from like these big AI companies so much that these guys kind of like have a fire to them that were like right under them that's like, oh, we got to like cut down expenses right now. And I'm wondering, Aaron, like what are the names that you're looking at right now? Because for me, I am looking at this situation. I'm like, oh, this is creating the next super cycle right now, which is the optimization side. Vast data, being able to process more data. Descartes being able to cut down inference expenses by 8 times for Trainium. Like, what are the names that you're looking at right now on the private market that you're like, these guys are actually delivering the solutions for these
Yeah.
big AI companies so that they can bring their prices
And
down significantly without reducing inference?
yeah, well, I would say like the paradigm shift is to me on this discussion is it's AI infrastructure. So like, all the stuff that we're talking about is demand. Like there's so much demand and so much cost, right? That people are trying to like optimize around this. No one's talking about not using it anymore, right? So compute, AI infrastructure, chips, data centers, that's to me the still a glaringly that's the best place to be, in my opinion, right?
Mhm.
So Base 10, Fireworks AI, Together AI, Lambda, those companies I think are really, really attractive investment opportunities, right? Um, and then of course on the application side, right? I think that's also super compelling. But FDEs, enterprise only, no consumer. I would stay away from consumer, at least at this
Mm.
point. But enterprise, FDEs, and open architecture on the model side. That to me is a great moat for an application company. So like Harvey, Glean, those types of businesses. And then of course, if they have outcome-based pricing, that's like a cherry on top, right, for those businesses too. So, that's where I would be burning my calories. But like not to jump ahead, but like Descartes, who I know you have under research coverage, right? Like they're in that kind of model layer perhaps. And but that's not like a large language model
Yeah.
business as
It's a
far as
world
I
model.
understand it.
Yeah,
Right. So
yeah, it's a
like, yeah,
completely
so
different
you tell us
space.
about that, right? Like that's different. See, to me, that's kind of a different play on that on the platforms, what I call the platform side, which is like, the large language models. But this is like a world model, which is a little different. So tell me about that, man.
Yeah, so the main pitch of Descartes right now, and like I'm like super excited about this company because um what they're able to do right now is they're able to essentially say, okay, fine, this is your workload that you put on, let's say a GPU. Like let's take Sora, for example. OpenAI's video generation platform. It was obviously killed. We know that, right? But uh, OpenAI trained their entire model on GPU, which is the best hardware to train the model on. But then when they actually wanted to run inference on it and bring it out to the people so that people can use, video generation and make all these funny clips as much as they want to, they were spending $15 million a day just trying to output these things. And it wasn't instant at all. It took like a long time. It could take up to 10 minutes to process a 30-second video that you get on your phone. And while it was amazing and there was huge demand for it, it like broke the internet for a little bit. OpenAI had to close down the program just days after signing a multi-billion-dollar deal with Disney so that they can license all these Disney characters and people can make, fun animations, be very expressive with AI as they want to. So what Descartes said, they said, okay, fine, we see the problem right now. OpenAI wants to run this model, but the GPU is just too inefficient for running this model. It's just too expensive. How can we pick up this model and drop it onto the best hardware for training inference and for output inference? And while doing so, also keeping the process for moving a model can obviously take a lot of time. They were able to move their entire video generation model from AWS Trainium onto an AWS Trainium chip, and they were able to 8x the output of inference while decreasing the cost by 2x. So they're able, like, this is the AI efficiency wave that I really like right now. And I'm seeing like the application here. And what I like, Aaron, and I want to share this with you too, is I thought this was so interesting. All right. Disney, all right, they signed a big deal to license Sora to use all these characters so that people can use them and be very expressive with AI and kind of open up this consumer market that we haven't seen yet, which is like people using AI for enjoyment, for entertainment. And this is like an industry that I still think has a lot more room to grow. This space, it hasn't grown like it has with enterprise business software, things like that. So they signed this deal with OpenAI. The deal gets cut. They're upset about it. All right. Disney CEO was one of the leading investors into this most recent round in Descartes. And I was just thinking about that from this perspective. Like, I wonder if they saw this other deal and they're like, we like Sora a lot for what it can do for Disney, and they're like, okay, fine, OpenAI kind of messed up that deal. Who can we go to now that can actually deliver the product that we want to? And I just think that's a very interesting story within this Descartes, this whole Descartes story that's coming onto the scene right now. So I just thought that was very interesting, and I'd be interested if like you see any other models out there and any other like real applications that we could tell people about. Like this is what this system is able to do. Here's how it will actually affect businesses. I feel like people can kind of get lost with like what the actual application is.
Yeah, well, I mean, Descartes is a good example. Prometheus, which is Jeff Bezos' new thing, right? With these artificial, general engineers.
Yeah.
All the humanoid robotics companies have world model solutions like 1X and Figure AI. They have their own kind of in-house, model solutions. Tesla, right, with the cars,
Self-driving.
the cars drive off of a world AI model, right, that they use and train from all of the video data that they get from cars being on the road over the last 10 plus years. And then they're using that same world model for the Optimus humanoid robot. So like, I think it's when people think about AI models, I think they very much think about these large language models, which are like kind of predictive text models, right? You're
Yeah.
predicting the next like kind of string of text or next letters of text that would come. That's what the AI model's doing. But there's all these like kind of real world application type models too, which need to be trained on different types of data and or pharmaceutical solutions and the like, right? So that's the space that I think is kind of coming next. And frankly, there's going to be some really like fascinating solutions. Like self-driving cars is a really interesting solution. That's not a large language model. That's a world model, right?
Yeah.
So humanoid robots, walking around and being able to execute tasks in a new environment that they've never been exposed to before and execute tasks within that new environment is very much a world model solution, right? You're making kind of predictive decisions, probabilistic decisions based on the environment, and the computer has never seen that scenario before, right? So that's very much an AI, type solution. With Prometheus, these guys, Jeff Bezos and crew, they're thinking about ways to like build a rocket engine and then hypothetically test that engine in a virtual environment to see if it will succeed or fail. Right. I mean, that's like super sci-fi. Like you watch like Star Trek and they're like trying to build something and then like running the simulation and it's like percentage of probability of success. I mean, like that's it. That's like what we're talking about here,
Yeah.
right? It's crazy. So like it's fascinating to kind of think about, some of these businesses and what's coming down the pipe and then, ultimately how they manifest themselves. What is interesting, man, what I think is interesting as an investor, okay, is like with the large language models, it appears that there's like an application layer on top. Okay. With the world models, though, it looks like those are kind of very proprietary to a product,
Yeah.
right? So, like,
Yep.
Tesla's using their world model to drive their cars and to operate their humanoid robots. They have talked about letting third parties like license that model, right, to do self-driving cars, etc., like a Ford Motor Company or something, right? It'd be interesting to see if people take them up on that. But, like with Figure AI, they're not, that's like very proprietary to them. They're not like letting other people get access to that model. Same for 1X, right? They're like building that and it's like very proprietary on how the robot will operate and run going forward. So it will be interesting to see if some of these world models take kind of a similar path from like a evolutionary perspective, as the large language models have, or if they'll kind of be very insular and, company specific or product specific from that company. Like, will it itself be the product, or will it be kind of a, in the background to the product that's sold to the consumer, like the robot, right? Or the or the
That's an
self-driving car.
excellent point there. That's a really good point there. And I feel like that kind of like tells a different like it makes you think about the story of robotics right now, and it's like it's such a forward looking thing. Like I believe when Elon says that there are going to be more robots than there are humans on earth at some point, that makes sense to me. How far are we away from that? I don't know. And even though we're looking at these massive valuations for these robotic companies that aren't profitable at all and haven't shipped any product at scale yet, it's like you can justify them because of the total addressable market there. And then you have to think like, okay, fine, where do these world models come in? Will Figure have their own world model, or are they going to
Yeah,
go to Descartes and they're going to say, no, we have to plug in this Descartes model to, to run a bunch of simulations as to what, let's say, there's a robot in the workhouse and the box isn't placed 100% correctly like it's supposed to be. It's a little bit off. Descartes can put in the frames so that a robot can recognize, oh, this is still a box. I just need to move it like this, then pick it up and do my usual spiel. So, like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's super forward thinking.
yeah.
What do you think this is going to look like for Figure
I
AI 1x?
Yeah, so this is where I think it gets hard for like humans to comprehend or just investors to comprehend like the exponential like move that these things can have. This is also something I've been talking a lot about with all of my investors. It's this like this concept of linear growth versus exponential growth, right? So and we're hitting a part of the exponential growth curve. So this stuff is growing exponentially. It's not growing linearly, right?
Yeah.
And we're getting to this point on the exponential curve where we're starting to go vertical and like things can get, things are kind of like if you haven't gone onto a graph and you've done a linear line and an exponential line, the exponential line lags the linear line significantly for a long time. And then all of a sudden it starts to go exponential and it's like vertical and it
Boom.
blows past it, right? And that is what's like I that's what's about to happen or is in we're in the middle of that, right? This like exponential like vertical movement of the linear line. So like what does that mean? What that means is like just to like kind of drive this home. You teach a robot how to do something, okay? Um, then so a robot learns a task and like the OpenAI or Figure AI just did this where they had like one of their robots, I think it was 3 days, it worked for 3 days straight without stopping on a particular task. Okay, person can't do that. Thing did the same thing every day for 3 days straight without stopping, and then it just like turned and walked away. Okay, like so like when it didn't fall over, like oh, you gotta go to sleep. I need something to eat. Like it worked 3 days straight, and it just like turned and like walked away, and it like I don't know went and recharged, right? So like like that. So my point is like you teach a robot to do a task, okay, and it learns and refines and it hits these like edge cases and solves for them and everything, right? And that starts to happen. Now you can like make 1,000 robots and you just take those learnings and you copy them into 1,000 robots. And now you have 1,000 robots doing that same thing for 3 days straight. Like you can't teach humans to do that and you can't stand them up that fast. That's exponential growth. Okay. You teach a robot to make another robot and it just sits there and makes new robots. And then the robot that it made, now also you just copy paste. It makes Now you have two robots making new robots, and then they make more. So you have this exponential curve of robots making new, like you can tell the robots to do everything. They all know how to do it immediately. I can't go out and teach. I used to run sales desks, right? I can't go out and teach every single person at the sales desk all the same tasks, all the same experiences. Can't do that with humans, right? You can do that with robots. So there's this exponential knowledge of like growth of knowledge for these robots, right? So whether it's full self-driving, whether it's robots in a factory, whether it's robots in your home, like the robots in your home will be very not useful, and then all of a sudden they'll be crazy useful.
Yeah, I think you're so right here, Aaron. Like I can already see it too. I think I'm gonna look at this clip of you saying this right now in a few years and just be like, Aaron, everyone was talking about Prometheus just reached a $41 billion valuation. They don't even have a product. 1x hasn't shipped anything at scale. Figure AI this. But you're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like we're gonna see growth go like this for a little bit, and then just one day boom, it's just going to go through the roof. Now, the question is what the timeline will be. And I don't know if anyone has an answer to that right now, but I mean, that's
Well,
like,
I will, dude, I will say this as an investor, there's going to be like I would recommend that people are like coiled spring on this stuff. So here's some guys telling you out loud, this is coming. Okay, so like put your radar out. And then when it comes, you're gonna have you'll have 6 to 9 months. And then it will be like $500 billion valuation. So you'll have like 6 to 9 months to pull the trigger on something, okay, or many things. And then everybody, it will be obvious to everybody that we're all going to have these robots in our house, that every factory is going to be full of robots, that every car is going to be a self-driving car. It will be obvious, right? And, drones will deliver all the food to everybody's home. Like it will be like obvious, and then you'll have missed it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You'll have missed the big pop. You can probably still buy it, and you'll have a nice return, right? But you'll have missed the 5x, 10x pop, right? So coiled spring, I wouldn't recommend people do it now, or do it now, but be really thoughtful about how much you put in, okay? But there'll be like a 6 to 9 month window where it will be like, okay, this guy was saying that he sees around corners. Now there's like a mirror, and we're looking in the mirror around the corner, and I can see it. It's there, right? So like now it's time to go. Like you'll have 6 to 9 months. You do it, and with like conviction, right? And you go, and then that's when you get in, and like kind of the risk-adjusted return profile is like super attractive, right? And that's when you can kind of pull the trigger and go. So,
Yeah.
coil spring, coil
I'm
spring.
clipping it.
This is coming.
I'm clipping it, Aaron. I'm clipping it, Aaron. I think that I'm going to be quoting you in a couple of years and just be like, you know what?
Yeah.
You're right again.
If I had to guess, I would say we're 12 to 18 months away from that 6 to 9 month window
That's
starting.
a pretty close timeline. That's pretty tight.
Oh, but that's what I'm saying. It's exponential.
You really think
Like
that
you just
robotics can
said,
have its ChatGPT moment within the next 6 to 18 months? Whoa.
yes.
Wow. I had it much farther out than that. But listen,
But
you
but
know,
just to be clear, like that, but what does that mean? So like just to put that into like super practical real world terms, right? So in let's say in 12 months time, 18 months time, right? It's now like, okay, the world models for these humanoid robotics companies are becoming very good. Okay, people are starting to have them in their homes, and they can tell that they're getting better. So they're not great when they start, but they're getting a little bit better, and they're shipping updates because they're getting more data in, right? And things are progressing. And then they're like, this is going to be the big unlock. They're like, we're teaching the robots to make more robots,
yeah,
to make more of themselves, right? And that will be, like OpenAI is already or Figure AI, excuse me, is already doing this, where they're like, I think they're doing like one robot a day now. Okay, don't quote me on that. I'm getting my numbers wrong here, but it's like there's like a proper amount of robots being made every week now by OpenAI. It's like a step change increase. And
Mm.
as those, like pretty soon they're going to have the robots making the robots. And then when that happens, then the amount of production coming out of those factories and the amount of robots that are being delivered out into the world it's going to be exponential. And then as all those robots are out in the world collecting data, just like Tesla did with the cars, the models are going to get better, which means the robots will get more useful. And they're all benefiting. They're all benefiting from that extra data. Not just one robot, not just the one in your house, all the robots in the entire network. So that's where the exponential part comes. So I think it's going to be like 6 to 12 months. People will start to notice improvements. Those robots will never be dumber than they are on that day and less useful than they are on that day. And then all of a sudden, you'll start to see the increase in production of how many new robots are coming out of the factory. And people are like, oh my gosh, okay, yeah, there's going to be billions of these. And you'll be able to see it. And you'll have 6 to 9 months. And then everyone, like whenever you hit critical mass, that's when the end of this, like critical mass and people who now realize and wake up like, oh, this is happening. That's when that 6 to 9 month investment window will have ended.
Man. I
Right?
mean,
So
so
that's it.
like, like I'm thinking right now, Aaron. Like, you've obviously covered 1X a lot. You've done a lot of research into them. That I think is a different timeline. How soon people will feel comfortable having robots in the home. I think that commercial is first. I think there's no doubt that we will have robots in the home for sure. But where do you see like what workflows do you see them like coming into quickly? Because when I think about it, it's like, okay, fine.
Elder
How
care,
long? How long before
elder.
we have an Amazon robot that could just do the complete job of an Amazon worker,
Yeah.
just moving
No, no,
boxes?
no.
That
I think that will. I think definitely think factories will happen. That's an obvious one, right? And businesses will optimize really quickly, right, to do those things. But I do think we will have these in our home. I think it's going to help happen with elderly people,
yeah,
right? So like that, the baby boomer generation is like all the reports coming out on baby boomers is they want to stay in their homes. They don't want to go to nursing homes. They don't want to get assisted care living, right? So if you can put a humanoid robot in an and if you can put a humanoid robot in your parents' home and that allows them to stay in their home for 1 to 3 years longer, and by the way, Aaron, it's half the cost of a at-home care. So now there's an economic reason, right? Your parents want to stay. There's an economic reason to do it, and arguably you're probably going to get a great service or solution from it. So my point is, I don't think it's going to be like probably guys like you and me coming out of the gates where there's like an obvious use case for this, but I think there'll be specific use cases where it will make a lot of sense, right? You have a vacation home and you want to make sure that everything's cool at the place. You pop a humanoid robot in there, walks around, make sure everything's cool all the time, right? I mean, like, so there's some, it's like security.
yeah,
Right? So like,
yeah,
this is the kind of stuff where I think there'll be like specific applications that I think it will make a lot of sense. And then that's where it will start, right? And then again, it will be exponential. So like, people will
yeah.
show up and they'll get one for mom and dad so they can stay in their house and be like, oh man, that thing's like actually pretty useful. Like maybe I should just get one for my house too. Like I got young kids and there's toys everywhere all the time. Like it'd be kind of cool if it could do that and clean up and then like maybe do the dishes when we're done, so I don't have to do the dishes and like it's like I could use it here, use that. How much does it cost? It's like, oh, it's like $300 a month. Like I think I would pay $300 a month for that. It's like like people are going to start to do that calculus in their heads, right? So, and then of course it gets more and more useful. So as it gets more and more useful and it can do more and more things, like more people will opt in, you know,
Yeah.
for
I,
those
I,
for
I
those solutions. So
I
yeah,
think I think you said it so well when you said these models are never going to be dumber than they were yesterday. Like, and that's it makes me think of when ChatGPT came onto the scene, when their image generation came onto the scene, and you would say, "Create me a picture of X, Y, and Z," and it would be you with your buddies, with 7 fingers and like your eyes in a different place, and it just doesn't look right. But you're like, this is something right here. Like, if we can get this to work, this is going to be huge. And now we
right.
see more generative AI prompts than ever before, and I think that robotics is going to follow a similar path where we're going to see it one point it's like, okay, fine, we all saw that Chinese robot trip over itself while it was trying to hit the Michael Jackson dance move. Like we all saw
Yeah.
it, but people aren't going to be laughing as much when it's 1,000x its consciousness to understand what's around him, and it can just navigate so much better, so much more efficiently, like
Yeah.
1,000x gains on efficiency and understanding and navigating the world as these world models continue to
Okay.
improve.
But just
And it's
to,
just
to just
that's the
to
ChatGPT moment.
So to drive this home even further, right, in the context of the broader discussion. So now you have all of these robots in people's homes and factories, etc. Okay, they're connected to the internet and they're running AI. They're pulling AI prompts constantly. Okay, that's all compute. So you and I use these things, and now these software developers are kicking off agents and they're running 24/7 and multiple agents and everything. Now imagine all these robots and just all day long, it's like prompt, 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 and it's a computer. So it's computer prompting. It's observing, prompting constantly, constantly, right?
Loops.
Constantly. So like the amount of compute demand is going to go exponential from where we are today, right?
Yeah.
So like this is kind of where I'm going with this. Like I still believe with high conviction that like AI infrastructure is the place to be right now, right? And then there's going to be these other opportunities that will present themselves. And I think, it's all interesting. To me as an investor, it's kind of like, where do you put your chips on the table at any given time? Where do I get the best risk adjusted return? And I still think that's right now that's in this AI infrastructure space. But there are starting to become like pockets, right? That I also think are becoming more obvious to me on that they're going to be good investment opportunities as well. So, it's just like I'm like super pumped as an investor. There's like so much interesting things going on. And what gets me almost more excited about it is it doesn't like most people I talk to have no clue that this is happening. Like SpaceX, like everyone's going nuts over SpaceX right now. Dude, he's talking about SpaceX for like 4 years. Everyone's just like waking up to the fact, like, oh, look at how amazing this company is. Like, where have you been? Like, these guys are landing rockets every day. Like, people are like, oh, I didn't ever realize Starlink had 2 billion people on the planet never had access to the internet. It's like, come on, man. Like the whole, like, I'm still seeing reports out there on SpaceX where people are not even acknowledging the fact that they are the fourth largest hyperscaler in the world after two deals, one with Anthropic and one with Google. Just this morning on Bloomberg, there's an article. The company's not profitable. Dude, what? Wake up. Like, come on. Like, what do you do? So you're going to count all the expense of the data center, but you're not going to count any of the new revenue that just hit? Like, how do you even make that statement? It's so uninformed, right? In my opinion. So like, this is what's happening with AI. No one understands the opportunity because none of these companies are public, right? So I think OpenAI and Anthropic going public second half of this year is going to open up a lot of people's eyes to like what the potential could be, and I think people are going to start to get into it. CoreWeave did that a little bit on the AI infrastructure side. Like it came public and like nobody really understood the business, right? Cerebus went public. Nobody, well, I think at that point they went public at like the perfect time, right?
Yeah,
Because
I
it
think so
just
too.
like people were like, man, everybody wants this and no one has computer, like whoop, and it ripped, right? So like I think there's some of the like some people are starting to realize it. Not everybody kind of realizes it. Like I just think that this is like I think most investors, especially in the public markets, like just have no clue, the nuances of this AI opportunity and this AI ecosystem. So it's like even better opportunity, I think, as private market investors to take advantage of this stuff. So
Yeah, I love you
pretty
painted the
exciting.
optimistic picture. The future looks very, very bright, Aaron. Very, very bright. Not just for the things that we'll be able to do with the new technologies, but for investors also. Like this is the most exciting time ever, ever.
Oh, I love it, man. This is like the best time to be alive. So I'm pumped. I'm
Aaron,
super pumped, man.
it's always great speaking with you. I always appreciate your optimism, and I'll speak to you next Tuesday, episode
All
12.
right, brother. Good to talk to you,
All the
man. Okay,
best.
take care. Take care, brother. I'm in. Bye bye.